Well, hello again, everyone. It's Jeff Adler, continuing my video series to promote my book, Why I'm Right, which, as I said before, is no longer being published, but I'm working on something to maybe get that fixed. However, we're doing the videos, and that's where I'm at right now. And we're going to go a little bit different on chapter 10 here. Instead of talking about the philosophy between the different political types, liberalism and conservatism, um, and not really dealing with any specific current event. This video, we're going to talk about global warming, which is a hot topic of late. We just had a summit where President Trump just pulled the United States out of the Paris Climate Accords. Thank God. And uh, we're going to talk in depth as much as a non-scientists can do, who did some research. The sheeple out there might want to consider doing that themselves once in a while, instead of falling for the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on mankind, which is man-made global warming. Uh, in order to determine what we're dealing with here, we have to first define our terms. What is global warming? But before I do that, I do want to get into the philosophy a little bit of what's behind the players and why they are pushing the things that they are pushing on this subject. Um, you might recall in a previous video we talked about the ways that the left likes to um, get around having to take the blame for anything, how they get around um, by talking about some bad thing or scandal that they did by diverting it, talking or blaming somebody else. Look over there. They're just as bad as we are. Why, all this other stuff. We called it Forber, which was the anagram for the different stages of their lack of a way of getting out of culpability. Well, they do the same kind of thing when it comes to debating hot topics. Only this time, rather than making you confused by what you're supposed to be paying attention to, this time they decide that once they begin losing an argument, which they inevitably would, they end the argument. They stop the debate. They end debate in a number of ways. The first way, of course, is taking their ball and going home, saying, no more debate. We're not going to talk about it anymore. We've made up our mind. It's our way or the highway. Deal with it or get out. And on top of that, they might also throw in some word weapons that they like to use, like denier. Now, being a conservative, words meaningless to me. I'm not triggered by anything, but I can be insulted by them. At least recognize they're trying to insult me. Let's put it that way. And how do I know that they're trying to insult me, or people, right thinkers, right wingers like myself? Well, because liberals have actually said that being a denier of man-made global warming is the same as being a denier of the Holocaust. Now, being Jewish, or at least raised Jewish, that's insulting to me in and of itself, but I choose to be insulted by these idiots or not. I choose not. But why that could be taken as insulting is because they're trying to compare a disagreement with a scientific, unproven theory to a factual event in history. And not just any factual event in history. An event in history that is still on the minds of many people. Some people are still alive who experienced it firsthand, making it not only provable but have multiple eyewitnesses to the event. An event that is not debatable. In fact, there have been court cases, one famous one in the late 70s, early 80s, where a woman, a school teacher from America, went up against a British author who denied the Holocaust many times, and she won her day in court and won the court case. This is not a debatable issue. So denying the Holocaust is simply stupid. Denying global warming is not stupid because the debate isn't over. There is no proof yet. There is no theory turned into fact yet. The liberals want to convince you of that fact, but that's simply not the case. In fact, liberals will go out of their way trying to convince everybody that everybody agrees with them and that the few holdouts, which just are the political right, are in denial or too dumb to recognize the facts written on the wall, on the chalkboard. Well, that's complete hogwash, and I'm going to prove it best I can today. I'm going to prove why this is the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on mankind. And all for political reasons. What else do the liberals do anything for? It is to shove their ideas down our throats. It is to grasp as much money out of a fear-mongering of a non-issue and redistribute it to people and organizations and countries that they want to distribute it to, which is the whole idea behind the Paris Climate Accords, by the way. Has nothing whatsoever to do with global warming. The effects of the Climate Accord, as everyone's pointed out, are so negligible and yet so expensive as there can only be one explanation for it. Money. Redistribution. Liberalism. We're also going to talk about one of the great hypocrites on the planet, Al Gore, who's put himself into a position of being the poster child for the global warming vis-a-vis the environment. No one elected him into this position. Nobody wants him in this position. He's decided to take it on by himself, do it all by himself, call himself what he wants to call himself, an expert who makes mistake after mistake after mistake. Also, we will talk about that and prove that fact and disprove many things that he has postulated. Non-scientists acting like he is the king of all global warming science. But what we will talk about, and we'll deal with him later, but up front what I want to talk about Al Gore about is his hypocrisy. Like all liberals who breathe it, swim in it, it's the off-gas hypocrisy just by their silly policies telling us to do what they say but not as they do, and he is a master at that very thing. Here's a guy telling everybody how to live their lives, to get off fossil fuels, take alternative or public transportation, and not fly in airplanes and do all this other stuff, and to not burn fossil fuels. Yet he himself has a 20-room mansion in Tennessee that spends 8 times more energy than the average house anywhere around him. A guy who's had private boats and planes and still flies around the entire world on his little quest to prove he's right when he can't. Spending more fossil fuel in his airplane for just himself and a few other people than any commercial airline would even come close to spending, and yet we're the ones who have to change and he doesn't. And the left has no problem with this because he's the poster boy for global warming and he's serving a purpose. So he gets to be a hypocrite because his hypocrisy is for the good or the greater good. So our friend Al Gore is a great hypocrite, a limousine liberal, a son of a bigot who tried to stop the blacks from getting civil rights in the 1950s and 60s. This guy has zero credibility with me. And we will prove it. So let's talk about what is global warming. Okay, so global warming. There's two kinds of global warming. There's natural global warming and there's man-made global warming. Okay, I do not deny either. By the way, it's a matter of how much. First of all, natural global warming. Okay, what is global warming? And what causes it? Well, global warming is when the sun, it's two things. It's when the sun, the earth absorbs the sun's energy, and it is the natural radiant heat, greenhouse gases caused by water vapor, caused by carbon dioxide, and caused by methane, mostly. And these cause radiant heat that's trapped by the lower atmosphere, and that builds up and creates warmth. The Earth naturally emits into outer space a lot of this radiant energy, this radiant heat, and does it in a balanced way. The amount of sun absorbed is equal to the amount of radiant heat released out of the atmosphere into outer space. That creates a balance. That's why the Earth does not go crazy and heat up or down. Now, what changes the heat are or the amount of heat, or the temperatures being spiking or dropping, or whatever, is the amount of those greenhouse gases. More CO2, more this, more that. Okay. But there are some things that are naturally going to create more of those greenhouse gases. El Nino. El Niña, depending on where or what you're talking about. The conditions that happen every couple of years naturally as a weather pattern in the Pacific. Volcanic activity is another thing that can cause that to change, to naturally change the climate of the Earth. And of course, the emission of those greenhouse gases. Now, this stuff happens all the time, and there's a lot more, believe me, there's a lot more natural mechanics of the Earth that create the balance or imbalance, as it may be. And the Earth is completely in control of this, thank you very much. Another hypocrisy of the left. They spent all this time, or a lot of energy, I should say, trying to convince everybody that the Earth is a living being, a living creature or something. They named it Gaia. They pray to it. They hug its trees. They do all this stuff. And they give it all the respect of a name and an anthropomorphic human-like existence and quality, and that it hurts and it's in pain and it's this and it's that, and then they turn around hypocritically but give it no respect when it comes to being able to defend itself against humans or whatever. And believe me, it can actually create change, do whatever it needs to do naturally to keep the balance. And it does. The Earth is an amazing, amazing planet. And it does what it needs to do to survive. And it will continue to do so. There's not much we can do to stop it, by the way. Here's another bit of hypocrisy from the left. They spent all sorts of time and energy convincing everybody that Darwin was correct. And he probably was. Okay, evolution was a thing. We are not just aliens from another planet. We're not created out of nothing by a supreme being. We didn't just pop into existence 8,000 years ago in the Garden of Eden. Okay, I get that. They spent all this time convincing everybody that evolution is correct and that we are a natural part of the evolution of the Earth. And then, hypocritically, they turn around and say that humans are not natural to the Earth because of what they do. They're natural because of what they are, but not what they do. In other words, it's natural for us to be an evolutionary part of the planet, but it's not natural for us to pollute it and cause all this havoc. Even though the Earth can compensate, they don't think so. Well, once again, they want it both ways. Liberals always want it both ways. Remember, as I mentioned before, the liberals have this weird propensity for trying to parse things. You know, they can believe that they can back the soldier, but they can't stand the soldier being a soldier. They can't stand what the soldier does, fight wars. I said it was in a previous video. It's equivalent to being for an architect, but not for the drawings he creates. Well, here again we have another hypocritical thing where the liberals are for man being naturally part of the Earth, but they can't stand what man does on the Earth. Well, whatever we do, if we are a natural part of the Earth, then whatever we do is natural. Even if it's stupid, it seems, even if it's polluting, even if it's not going to help us, it might kill us. Earth, okay. Earth will recover. What they're really worried about is us. But they pretend it's Earth. And Earth's going to recover. Earth will recover from anything we do. Even if it wipes us out, Earth will still be there. Even if we set off every atomic bomb, nuclear bomb, whatever, neutron bomb, hydrogen bomb on the planet, planet will survive. We won't. Planet will survive. But that doesn't make it unnatural. Maybe that's the way it was meant to be. All species go extinct one way or another. Ours might be through technology. Is technology not natural because it was created by humans? Or is it natural because it is a byproduct of a natural species on a planet? I think the latter. Liberals tend to think the former. Now, so hypocrisy is all around this thing because they can never get their story straight. But we've talked about natural climate, global warming. What is unnatural global warming? What is man-made global warming? Again, it can't be considered unnatural just because man does it, but okay. Well, the ideas of man-made global warming is that somehow man has the capability of changing weather patterns. Now, the easy answer to this is if we can't stop a hurricane, for instance, how can we start one? How can we create one? If we can't stop a tornado, how in the world can a man create a tornado? How is it our doing that's making us have more tornadoes or more hurricanes, as we've been told? If we can't lower the temperature, how can we raise it? If we can't raise the temperature, how can we lower it? See where I'm going here? There's no logic just on its surface. Okay? But let's say that we're able to create things and have no idea how we did it. Well, we'll discuss the myths and the truths about global warming, man-made global warming, on part 2. All right? Until then, ciao.